also in your book.
Right.
How do you measure aging?
Well, we used to just look at people and that person looks kind of old, that person doesn't.
Right.
Then we had telomeres, which was all the rage in the 1990s. Actually, telomeres aren't the whole rage anymore. There's a new way of measuring aging, and it's this Horvath clock you mentioned.
Okay.
So the Horvath clock has revolutionized our ability to design ways to slow down and in my lab accelerate aging. We can measure it. I could take your blood today, maybe I should, take some back to my lab, and I could measure your actual biological age. So forget about candles, they're irrelevant. I could measure this Horvath clock, and I could tell you not just how old you are biologically, but how long you're going to live and when you're going to die.
When you're going to die?
Yeah, very accurately. It's scary, but this clock actually tells us, I think, about what the process of aging is. Why do we age in the first place?
So it's not, telomeres is sort of old school now? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, I try not to just be black and white about this, but telomeres is certainly not the whole story of aging anymore.
So in general, then we're going to get very specific. Why do we age? How do we age?
Well, so this is what's in my book, which is I've kept bottled up an idea about aging, and we studied it for 10 years and kept it secret. And it all just flowed out onto the page in the book. And we have all this research to back it up. What I'm proposing is that there are lots of different causes of aging. Telomere loss is another, is a main one. There's stem cell loss, senescent cells, so zombie cells that accumulate, all these things. We actually, as a field, I'm a scientist, first and foremost, we declared victory over aging about 10 years ago. We said there are 8 causes of aging. Let's put them in a pie chart. We're done. We know what causes aging. And I'm there thinking, that's great, but what causes those things?
Right.
Is there a unified theory of aging?
Okay.
And that's what I've got in the book. It's called the information theory of aging. And it can explain, I think, why all of those things happen. So instead of building 9 dams or 8 dams on 8 tributaries, we may be able to go all the way up and stop the main driver of what causes us to get old.
So I want to go through a couple of the things. By the way, the book, now has an audio version that's been updated as well. And I really recommend you all, if you have the book, is go get a look at the new audio book and listen to that, because there's a whole new thing in the book there that he's added as well. But I want to go through some of the basic things you've covered, because some of these things I do, and I'm wondering if they're still effective, and I'm wondering if I shouldn't be doing them anymore. But one of the things I was prescribed, I have had a touch of arteriosclerosis in my life. And one of the things my cardiologist was concerned about was inflammation in my body. And so I was prescribed metformin.
Yeah.
In an effort to reduce inflammation in my body. And I'm wondering all of your thoughts on metformin, because it's at the it's part of the book, and it's also part of a lot of the conversation about anti-aging, glucose regulation, and those kind of things.
Yeah, so the thing with metformin that everyone needs to know, and will know if they get the book, is that there are 3 main ways to slow down aging, 3 genetic pathways. I work on one pathway called the sirtuins, which we can talk about later, but they're a crux of defending against aging. There are 2 others. One responds to how much protein you eat, and the third one responds to how much energy, chemical energy is in your body. That's metformin.
Okay.
So metformin will trick your body into thinking there's not enough energy, and it'll respond and actually make your body, we think, fight against aging,
right.
and particularly type 2 diabetes. So metformin is a drug that came out from the French lilac. It's originally a natural molecule, but it was tweaked a bit, so it's now a drug. You need a prescription. But I'm shocked. Are you still taking metformin?
I'm not.
Ah, well, all right. We need to talk.
Okay.
But I'm not an MD. But
why should we talk? Should I be still taking it?
I don't make any recommendations.
In general.
But what I do is I take it.
You do?
Yeah, I don't leave home without it.
Can I tell you why I stopped, and you can correct me?
Sure.
Okay. I stopped because I started to read at least anecdotal evidence, because I do lift weights.
Yep.
I'm an athlete. I'd like to think of myself as an athlete, even though I'm pushing 50 years old. That it may have some negative implications on athletic performance, and or recovery.
All right, so now we're really jumping in fast. All right.
There we go.
All right, so
I've been waiting for today for a long time. Sorry.
Yeah, so metformin, what it does is it inhibits your mitochondria. It makes your body think you don't have enough energy, and your body will respond accordingly, and you become what's called insulin sensitive. You'll have low glucose levels in your body, and it'll prevent type 2 diabetes.
Right.
What we also know from studies of 10,000 up to 100,000 people in some studies, people who take metformin seem to be protected not just against diabetes, but against heart disease, cancer, frailty, and Alzheimer's. That's all good. That's what you find in an anti-aging or longevity pill.
Okay.
Metformin's great because it's, as far as we know, pretty safe. It's been taken by probably 100 million people around the world. It's on the list of the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines for humanity. So it's pretty good. You're not going to die from it. It's very rare. Consult a doctor as you did.
Okay.
But I was surprised that your doctor put you on metformin even though you didn't have diabetes. That's very rare.
The reason was, and I won't say her name, but I think she's sort of at the cutting edge of this, and she really does believe that one of the greatest risks to my health or anybody's health is developing type 2 diabetes.
Great. So your doctor knows a lot more than most doctors?
Correct. Most cardiologists, it's Lipitor and Crestor and, don't eat a steak.
Exactly.
Right.
And their view, and I train a lot of doctors and work with them, but their view is, unless you pass the threshold of a disease, we won't treat it. But metformin will prevent diabetes as well and get your glucose levels. And actually the best predictor of longevity right now, besides this clock, is your blood glucose levels. You want to keep them down.
Okay.
You do not want to go up. And I was going up and up and up. So I started taking metformin a couple of years ago.
You do.
And ostensibly my biological age, based on different tests, not the clock, but the other tests, went from 58 down to 31.4.
It's incredible. And you look 31.4 and I look 58. So I need to get back on metformin.
I was joking with Ed that I needed to wear this padded suit so that I don't look such a wimp.
Well, I think you look
But no,
great.
you're looking great.
Thank you.
But let's get back to the muscles. So this is called hypertrophy, muscular hypertrophy, which is great. I would love to look like you, and I just don't have the time to do it. But it's great. Plus you will be much stronger when you're older, which is key to living longer.
Bone density, things of that sort.
All of that's great. And actually one of the things we like to say in my field is the best way to live a long life is to hang on to the handrail, which basically means don't slip and break your femur or you're done for, like my grandmother.
Right.
But let's get into something really important. A lot of people aren't sure about metformin because there were 2 studies just this year that showed that it slows muscle hypertrophy.
Right.
But here's the good news.
Okay.
And I know the world's experts in this, and I've talked to the authors of the paper. So here's the scoop.
All right.
First time.
Awesome.
All right, you're getting this the first time.
This is awesome.
What they found, and this is also work that's not yet out, so let me give you the scoop.
Okay.
The patients that got metformin and those that didn't, they all got bigger muscles and they all got stronger. Okay. One group got slightly bigger muscles. That was the group on placebo, and those on metformin didn't get so big. But when they did the strength test, they were equal.
Wow.
So they're all strong.
Wow.
They may not look as good.
Okay.
So I think it's a vanity versus longevity decision.
Okay.
But I think there's a way around this as well. Now we're on the cutting edge, so we don't know for sure, but what I do is when I work out, I stop taking metformin, let my body recover for a couple of days, and then I go back on it.
Ah.
And Peter Attia, the good doctor who studies this, we both agree that you don't want to be taking the same medicine every day necessarily, just as you don't want to work out every day. You need to give your body a rest.
Okay.
So, we cycle
So
these
in
things.
between workouts, you might, if someone works out, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you might suggest that the workout days specifically they not take something like metformin on those days.
Well, that's what I do.
Okay.
That's based on everything we know in the world right now.
Okay. And then, by the way, thank you for that. You guys, first off, I'm so grateful that you exist. Because, we were talking about this off camera too, that this whole field that you're in is moving so quickly and you're at the cutting edge of it. And I think every person listening to this, regardless of whether they want to live healthier, they also want to live longer, but as they live longer, they want to be able to, I've already looked at it differently. I look different. I love my dad, but I look different at 48 than my dad did at 48. You know what I'm saying? I think athletically, physically, my strength level, and I think what's possible with somebody like you, like right now, if someone did all the things that are in your book, if they put the right formula together, not only do you think they can not be aging, but what's the window of time they might be able to reverse their aging by? I know that's by person, but in general, how many years can someone reel off their life or add to their life rather?
Right. Well, so someone like me doesn't typically exist because they're scared of what our colleagues will say. And it's pretty rough for a scientist to be out there talking about things that are really on the cutting edge and projecting into the future.
And to some extent speculative still, correct?
Right.
Based on evidence, but speculative.
But how selfish is it for me and my family
Right.
to reap the benefits? We're all scientists in my family. We're on similar programs. How selfish is that for me to keep that bottled up? I want to tell the world what I'm learning.
It's wonderful.
And we're in a world where now everybody can learn as fast as I'm learning and what I'm doing. And that's I feel an obligation to do that. But what about talking about the metformin, the story?
2.5 years it says it takes off, or adds
Well,
to. So if you're,
it can.
right?
Yeah.
Theoretically, if you're 50, you're now 47.5 if you're on the normal dose of metformin is what they're saying. But we don't really know. We don't know what it's going to do to diminish your ability to get type 2 diabetes, what that could do, heart disease, all the inflammation in your body because of these glucose spikes, correct?
Yes. Well, so here's the most important take-home message, is that only 20% of your longevity and how you'll feel when you're 70 and 80 and 90 is genetic.
Okay.
The rest is in your hands.
Wow.
Isn't that, that's liberating?
Yes.
I mean, you can sit on the couch, you can eat potato chips, you can not exercise, you can eat whatever you want. But you're minimizing your potential.
Right.
And what we all have in our bodies, what we co-discovered in my lab, is that there are genes that control how long we live. We work on these pathways. And what we've discovered is they don't just exist, they respond to how we live. And what we want to do is trick our bodies into thinking there's adversity. Biological stress, not emotional stress, but biological stress.
Okay.
So now we understand, why does exercise make us healthier and live longer? Why does being hungry make us live longer? Why do all these things, eating good foods, it's because they're turning on these body defenses, these longevity genes that we work on. And that's the revelation. They're in all of us, but they become complacent unless we trick our bodies into getting this feeling of adversity.
Adversity.
So we call this hormesis.
Okay.
Hormesis is what doesn't kill you, makes you live longer. And that's the reason you should be running and getting out of breath. That's the reason you should be eating plants that are being stressed themselves. You get the benefits of those molecules that they make for their own benefit.
Okay.
We call that xenohormesis. Terrible word, but anyway, it's good to eat stress plants. Like that's why red wine's good for you, we believe. It's full of those molecules.
Thank God. Thank God.
Yeah, so resveratrol, you'll remember.
Yes. Where are you? So let's go there. You're famous for that. And I got the feeling lately, maybe you're not as married to it as you once were, or am I incorrect about that? And then for those of you that are taking resveratrol, is it also not true that if you're not doing something that can make it bind to something so that it can be absorbed by your body, do you mind talking about that for a second? Because people just kind of willy-nilly take these pills, I think, to some extent, and think they're doing something. So A, do you still feel as strong about it as you did at one time? And B, could you tell us how to properly ingest it?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So I also dodged the question, not intentionally, of how far can we slow and reverse aging.
You did. I'm sorry. You're right. I'll let you dodge that.
Well,
I'm so fascinated.
I worry because people will say, oh, how can you say that?
Right.
Right. So this is my best guess, is that you can alter your lifespan at least a decade by how you live your life, maybe more.
Wow.
And my father is an example of someone who took life by the horns, changed his life. He's super fit. He's now 80. He's living life like he was 30 still. He's got no diseases.
Is that right?
He just put his name on a wait list for his dream car. I'm thinking, a wait list? You're optimistic.
That is awesome.
He started a new career. Really, this is the future for all of us if we look after our bodies and do what we think is the right thing.
Love it.
Right. So that I think that 10 years is
10 years is at least, based on current science, something you could be doing.
Right. And actually, every 4 years longer we live, we gain another year, just because the trajectory of the science, how it's going.
And we're going to talk about CRISPR a little bit later, where we might be able to interrupt heart disease and some other things here going forward that'll extend life. My God, it could be 3 decades. But go ahead, go on resveratrol if you would.
So resveratrol is this molecule in red wine that
Right.
is thought to protect the French from high-fat foods.
Yeah.
And we discovered that it activates an enzyme in the body called SIRT1, one of these sirtuin protective enzymes that's activated by hunger and exercise.
Okay.
So resveratrol we discovered as the first molecule that could mimic a calorically restricted diet and exercise. This wasn't an excuse to just sit on the couch and pop a pill, because we actually found that if mice took resveratrol and exercised and ate a healthy diet, they lived the longest.
Okay.
So it's a combination, but you want to keep these enzymes active, because as we get older, these defensive enzymes like SIRT1, they go down in their activity.
Okay.
So there are 2 ways to keep SIRT1 super active, besides living the healthy lifestyle that many of us know about and is in my book, page 302, 303.
Unbelievable.
Jump to because some people, they just want the fact, just want the list.
Right.
But resveratrol is a remarkable molecule because plants make it to survive, because plants have sirtuin longevity enzymes as well.
Okay.
But when we ingest that, we get the benefits. Right?
Okay.
So you said I was not as hot on that.
Yeah.
What happened was,
Yeah. Okay, I was right.
what happened was, all of us who've been blessed to be successful in what we do have gone through really hard times. And I had my moment, the worst time of my life, in 2010. So I'd spent
What was it? Do you mind saying what it was?
Yeah, sure. So I had discovered resveratrol activates anti-aging pathways. We'd shown that it extended lifespan in everything from a yeast cell to a worm to a fly to a mouse, protected them against a Western diet, and even extended their lifespan when we gave it to them every other day.
Okay.
That was great. We developed drugs that were showing efficacy, working in humans to treat a disease called psoriasis,
Yes.
which is inflammation on the skin. Everything was looking like we were going to be the first people to make a drug that treats aging on the market.
Okay.
And then a couple of companies, for reasons that we can only speculate, came out with their science and said, it's all wrong. Everything David said is wrong.
I remember that.
It blew up.
Yeah, I remember that.
It trashed the trials, and I was the pariah of the scientific world. And it was tough. I spent a week in bed. I couldn't get out of bed. It was real depression. And I was really angry with the world, I'll admit, because here I am trying to do my best.
Right.
I'm putting my life aside. I'm putting my family aside to help the world, like you do.
Yes.
Well, maybe not your family, but we want to
I know
help the
exactly
world.
what you mean.
And and then everyone said, "Ha ha, you're wrong. Screw you." And it was tough. But my passion is to leave the world a better place.
Yeah, this is your calling.
So I couldn't stay in bed.
Awesome.
That to me is worse than death, is just sitting there.
Hope everybody just heard that.
Yeah, it really is. You got to have. My mission is to change the world in this way. So got out of bed and spent the next 3 years testing whether what these companies were saying, and I'll say who they were, Pfizer and Amgen, both didn't agree with us. But what it did, and the silver lining was, it forced us to do even better science and go back and test our hypothesis very, very rigorously. And we put out a paper in the journal Science, which is the best in the US, best in the world probably, showing that we were right, that resveratrol really was activating this enzyme and wasn't what the naysayers were saying. But you know what? In the media, there were crickets. No one cares about the comeback guy.
Right, that's
they just cared about the fall.
Right.
So what we've done over the last, 7 years, is we've been testing this even more rigorously.
Okay.
I'll tell you what we've done.
Okay.
We've created a mouse. We can genetically create mice with very specific changes.
Okay.
We changed the mouse by changing one amino acid, one part of this protein. So you don't mind if I get a little bit technical here?
Do it.
All right.
Please.
So the enzymes are basically machines that change other proteins.
Okay.
And SIRT1, it's the traffic cop. It tells the body to fight diseases, fight aging.
Okay.
But to do that, it has to move. It has to change things.
Okay.
And what it does is it has this active enzyme activity in the middle, that's its chest. But this arm is the activator. This is the the accelerator pedal.
Okay.
So the accelerator pedal is pushed by resveratrol. Resveratrol will come in,
I get
stick
it.
here,
Yep.
push the accelerator, and now the SIRT1 enzyme is fighting against disease.
Okay.
Now we figured out that you can block this step by changing one little thing. Give it tennis elbow, can't bend the elbow. Now resveratrol cannot work anymore.
Got it.
So we made a mouse that was unable to bend this arm and activate. So the accelerator pedal, we took it out of the system. The mouse is otherwise normal. It doesn't have the accelerator pedal though. So if we're wrong and we give resveratrol to these mice, they won't live longer on a high-fat diet, Western diet. If we're right, resveratrol won't work at all.
Okay.
And we got the second result, 100%. And that's as close to proof that we were right in the first place. So what I'm hoping is that'll reinvigorate the field and we'll get those drugs back into those clinical trials.
Okay.
But I haven't been sitting on my hands. I've been working on other molecules that seem to have a lot of promise and maybe even better than the original discovery.
Such as?
Well, we call them NAD boosters, or NADs, some people call them NADs. So there are two ways to activate these protective enzymes. One is the accelerator pedal. The other is the gas that comes in through here. And without either of those, you don't have hyperactive system. And as we get older, we lose this NAD. So it's estimated that by the time you're my age, 50, and you're getting close, you have about half the levels you did of NAD when you were young, when you were 20. So of course your defenses against aging are going to be about half the levels that they were. So there are some ways to keep your NAD levels relatively high. One is to exercise. lose your breath, work out.
Lose your breath. You said that a couple times.
Yeah.
So
You want to lose your breath.
So not walking cardio, lose your breath cardio.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the best way, at least based on the animal studies we've done and some
Okay.
human studies.
Okay.
And then the second is you want to be hungry at least
Okay.
part of the day. And that'll raise the levels of...
What do you mean by that? Like, so do you believe in intermittent fasting, or do you?
I do.
You do?
I do. We used to restrict calories the whole day
Yeah.
in these, what we call calorie restriction. And that was the paradigm for about
Okay.
70 years, actually.
Okay.
And then in the last 10 years, we've realized, hey, you don't need to always be hungry.
Okay.
You can actually eat a decent meal or two.
Okay.
But don't eat 3 meals a day. Don't always snack.
Okay.
Because being hungry is what turns on these protective enzymes. And so I've now shifted my life to eating small meals. What I do is I skip breakfast as best I can,
Yeah.
eat a very late lunch or even forget to eat lunch, and then eat a normal dinner.
This is more and more. So that Dr. Ian Smith that I told you was on my show, his book was about intermittent fasting, but the aging benefit was never discussed. We discussed the health benefit, although I'm sure Ian's aware of it. It's not something that we discuss. Just to put a loop on resveratrol, what about the way you take it? Is it important? I was reading that you thought something about taking it with either like a yogurt or a milk or something it can bind to. And why
Exactly.
does that matter?
Well, so there are clinical trials over the last 10 years based on our research, and some have failed and some have succeeded.
Okay.
And the main reason that they've failed, in my view, is that doctors who don't understand resveratrol have just given the pill with water. And
Yes.
resveratrol is the equivalent of brick dust. It's like eating sand, right? We're here on the beach.
Okay.
If you eat sand, you're not going to absorb it.
Okay.
But if you crush up the sand and mix it with things, you might absorb a little bit.
All right.
That's what we do with resveratrol. And what I do personally is I have this amazing yogurt that I make myself.
Okay.
And I mix it with that, and it dissolves beautifully. And I have a couple of spoons of that.
So if I'm taking a pill, could I take it with a yogurt? Is that what you're suggesting?
That would work in your stomach.
Okay, okay.
I have powder in my basement, so I just spoon it in.
Okay.
I take about half a gram to a gram.
Okay. Awesome.
But yeah, you got to do that. And so
Yeah.
the recent studies that have actually included resveratrol with a meal have succeeded in lowering blood sugar.
Got it.
And there are actually now, I was just at a meeting in Washington, D.C., where they have beautiful clinical data showing that it works like metformin to reduce blood sugar as
So
well.
this blood sugar concept, because that's my cardiologist, is a big thing too. This is just going to be huge throughout everything that we're learning about the body and keeping it stable and not aging, and also not even turning on certain. Can inflammation of the body speed up turning on a genetic code that's already in there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. The inflammation is a problem, because if you have inflammation, it'll also shut down these defenses against aging,
Okay.
and that'll lead to more inflammation and
Okay.
just accelerate aging.
Okay.
You know, we know that we get to about 40 and we're still pretty good. We get to 50 and we're starting to feel a little different, looking different.
That's absolutely true.
And then you fall off a cliff.
Yes.
That's this positive feedback of inflammation, shutting down longevity genes,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Okay.
And it
Because
once you're on
I
that,
have
you're
found
dead.
that those things, we're going to talk about them later, like my vision, other signs of aging, really started to accelerate in my mid to late 40s, approaching 50. I mean, massive difference. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but
you
it's
got it.
certainly something I've seen evidentiary, like my own experience as a human.
Yeah.
I feel myself aging now at this point.
Yeah, so there are things you can do to slow that down,
Right.
and things that we're doing that slow and reverse aspects, and then technology that can reverse all aspects.
Okay, let's keep talking about that. By the way, everybody, this is one of these shows. My audience loves this, just so you know. So many of them are driving right now. They're going to go back. This is a watch it again or listen to it again, and you're taking all these notes. So I want to go through a couple other specific things. We've talked about resveratrol. We've talked about metformin. There's sort of this cocktail sort of that you suggest to some extent. I want to talk about growth hormone for a second. What are your feelings about growth hormone, both taking an exogenous version or doing things that may, if it even works, of growing your own, and why is growth hormone so important or not important?
Yeah. So in my field of aging research, it's debated tremendously. And most of the debate comes from studies of animals. And what we find is that animals that have low levels of growth hormone live longer. So there's this...
Low levels live longer.
Right.
Okay.
But there's something that my colleagues don't appreciate, and that is a lifelong treatment of, or lifelong existence with low growth hormone. What you end up with is dwarfism. So small animals, due to a lack of development, live long.
Oh, wow.
It's also, by the way, known that the smaller you are, you tend to live longer. That, and we know that from pet dogs. If you've ever had a large dog, you know the problem. So the reason is that during development, we're actually slowing down the clock. And the clock is changing when you're young as well. But what I believe anyway, is, having read thousands of papers on this topic, is that growth hormone isn't bad, but it won't make you live longer.
Okay.
Because what it's doing is some benefits. It's going to improve your body's metabolism, it's going to help you grow muscle, but what it's not doing is turning on the longevity genes, which is what you need to do, the kind of things that I'm doing to get those active as well.
Okay.
So what's exciting to me is maybe you could take growth hormone, but then trick the body into thinking that it's lacking growth hormone and that you're exercising tremendously.
How would you do that?
Trick it?
Yeah.
Well, what I do is the combination of the metformin
Yes.
with the resveratrol, and there's the NAD booster, which I take. Those are the three main components. By the way, I don't recommend anybody do anything. I'm a PhD, not a doctor.
Right.
But I feel no obligation to say what I do.
And by the way, one other thing, there's all these companies out there suggesting that your name's on them, but you're not involved with any particular company that's NAD that they could purchase right now,
Zero.
are you? Zero.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ed, because if you look on the internet, you might think that I have 10 companies.
You would.
There's even a Sinclair Labs. Somebody started a company with my name on there.
My goodness.
So I don't do that, and there's a very good reason for that.
Okay.
It's because I need to be able to give you my unbiased scientific opinion.
Okay.
And if I have some favorites, why would you trust what I'm saying?
A good point. Okay, so we got the growth hormone answer. Okay, my age, you find a dude looking like me. That dude may have had an interest in hormone replacement, and I'm wondering your thoughts on that. So I've had people say to me, as your hormones in your body diminish. You are aging, and so for that reason, in the anti-aging movement, particularly testosterone therapy for both men and women now is a pretty highly prescribed and recommended protocol as their own levels drop. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to me.
Okay.
There are 2 points. One is that maintain what you've lost.
Okay.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Testosterone and growth hormone.
Okay.
But don't think that they're going to make you live longer. That's
Okay.
not. The solution.
Okay.
I think you need to combine that with these other things that will put your body in a defensive state.
Okay.
Because testosterone and growth hormone, they're going to do the opposite. They're going to put your body in the growth, reproduction state,
Okay.
which is great when you're young, but it's not going to extend your lifespan.
Do you believe, is it a wives' tale that either testosterone or the growth hormone may grow organs in your body, or do we not know? In other words, the heart might expand to a dangerous extent. And secondly, I just love asking you this stuff, sorry. And secondly, that potentially if you were to develop cancer or a tumor, that it could accelerate the speed at which the disease manifests itself in your body. Do we know? Do we have an idea? Do you have an opinion about it?
Yeah. Well, so it's debated. So there is, the truth is we don't actually know.
Okay.
But I've read all the literature, and,
Okay.
and my personal take on the science is that it's not a risk
Okay.
to develop tumors. But if you have a tumor, then I think then you get serious with your doctor, and I think you stop this stuff.
Okay.
But everything I've seen is that things that you and I do, they're not going to make things worse. But if something's detected, then we're in new territory. So for instance, NAD boosters, I take those. If you give those to mice, they have new blood vessels. It's like a super drug.